Well, my friends, sometimes it's difficult to believe that we have guides and angels, but I want to share two stories of miracles where guides and angels actually saved our bacon. One is my story. Many years ago, I was working for a small municipality, collecting money that then had to go on to be deposited in our state. And as I was leaving my job, I noticed that the um, passenger door on the small truck I was driving was not closed. So I reached over and gave it, you had to kind of do it with an oomph because it was a truck. And then I went home, and the next day I had planned to make the deposit to the state. So the next day I get back in the truck. We live in a remote area. I wasn't worried about leaving the truck unattended. And the deposit and the checks were not on the seat. Well, I was beside myself. And so I sat in the truck and I prayed and I meditated. And the image came to me of that moment that I reached over and opened the door. Now, overnight, we had had a snowstorm. And so, even if all of this had fallen out when I opened the door, the snow plows would have pushed it with the banking and the salt and, you know, would have messed it up anyway. But I went back to that exact spot and I got out of the truck. People probably thought I was nuts because I was digging around in the snowbank with my mittens. And I actually was able to collect the checks and the deposit, which I had put in an envelope. And so the envelope had gotten very wet and stained, but actually, the rest of it was fine. Now, my husband is a funeral director, and he was caring for a young man who had been in a fatal automobile accident. A large truck had slid and hit him head on. And this young man was very Christian and always had a cross in a very specific pocket in his jeans. You know, that little pocket that is um, in kind of the front pocket on the right hand side, but it's a little, I don't know what it's called, that little pocket anyway. And the family had asked my husband to look for a cross that their son had always kept in that little tiny pocket. So my husband looked and looked and looked and kept going back and looking, and it just wasn't there. And he thought, well, maybe when the paramedics had moved him, maybe it had gotten dropped outside, maybe it was somehow in the wreck of the truck, but it wasn't in the pocket. And so days went by as he was working with this family. And one night he woke up in the middle of the night and a voice said to him, "Look again." So my husband starts arguing with the voice, saying, I've looked and it's not there. The voice said, "Look again." And the next day when he went into work, he looked and the cross was in the little pocket of the jeans, which was kind of a miracle. It really was. They were both in our history, we call them miracles. I wonder if anything like this has happened to you, where you are sure without a doubt that you have help either from guides, angels, perhaps a loved one or ancestor in the world of spirit who is acting as a guide for you. I would love to hear your story. And until I see you again, my friends, please be well and please be blessed. Thanks for coming.